But let's say in the southern Gaza city, Dr. Mosab Nasser is there. He's the CEO of FAJR Scientific. Doctor, I understand your teams are providing emergency medical care for the people of Gaza. So just explain to us, if you don't mind, the challenges they're facing.
Thank you for having me. Currently, we are at the European hospital in Gaza. The European hospital is located kind of at the border between Rafah and Khan Younis, and it's one of the major hospitals in Gaza. One of the biggest challenges that we face here is really the lack of supplies at the hospital, and that's why, as humanitarian and medical teams, we bring all these supplies with us and carry as much as we can to try to make use of the time of our surgeons and primary care physicians during the period that we are here. But there is a shortage literally of everything you can think of, medical supplies and otherwise. But in the last couple of days, since the beginning of the military operation in eastern Rafah, what has happened at the European hospital is that most of the local staff, nurses, doctors, surgeons, are actually, many of them live in the eastern part of Rafah. So they had to evacuate with their families into al-Mawasi area, which is west of Khan Younis. So many of them had to leave the hospital, and the hospital is literally running on a skeleton number of staff effectively, which has put a lot of pressure on the hospital administration to treat all the patients, the injuries, the patients that are in the ICUs. And so FAJR Scientific had to basically try to fill the gap. We have about 17 medical personnel. 12 of them are from the US, 3 from the UK, 1 from Egypt, and 1 from Oman, to try to run the emergency room effectively in collaboration with the remaining staff from the European hospital, but also run the operating theaters. Complex surgeries are done by our surgeons with the limited number of local staff that can help them. So these are really primary challenges that we're facing at this point, but most also importantly, the fact that going between the hospital and our safe house has been a challenge because of literally the random bombing in the area in Rafah. And it's not just in eastern Rafah. We are actually supposedly in the green area of Rafah that's considered safe, and bombs have been falling within a distance of less than half a kilometer from our safe house, which has been really concerning for the safety of our team.
Yeah, a few months ago, you'll have seen this. You may have witnessed it yourself. Doctors were having to perform surgeries, cesareans, amputations without anesthetic. Is that still the case, as far as you know, not just at the European hospital, but also what sort of patients are you treating?
That is actually the case, and we have to carry those anesthetics with us as much as we can when we come through Egypt under the umbrella of the WHO. And so those medications are extremely valuable, because without them we cannot operate. And the kind of patients we are seeing, because a lot of people talk about war, what we see here is not really war. We see casualties that are primarily women and children brought to the hospital in the middle of the night. Because when you talk about war, you expect, casualties of all types, including militants. We haven't seen any militants coming to the European hospital, or even on the streets in Gaza. In fact, surprisingly, we see police on the streets in Gaza. And so what we have seen so far are a huge number of casualties in Rafah between the European hospital where we are, and also the Kuwaiti hospital in the south, and other smaller hospitals that have been receiving these casualties. Most of them are actually entire families, the mother and her children, the father and their effectively extended family. We've lost, literally in the last couple of days, we've seen literally families wiped out in Rafah. So we don't see that as a war. We see literally an annihilation of a population, a civilian population in Rafah that have been forced to flee their homes into empty areas in west of Khan Younis called al-Mawasi, including many of the local staff at the European hospital.
You've seen entire families wiped out, and you yourself have suffered that. This is a personal issue for you as well. You have lost so many family members. Tell us about that, if it's not too painful for you.
That is correct. About 2 months ago, or maybe 3 months ago, we have actually lost 72 members of the Nasser family, which is mine, in a single airstrike in Al-Marazi. I'm actually originally from north of Gaza. I've left Gaza almost 27 years ago, and I live in Houston, Texas. And I'm the CEO of this organization, and I came back to help and serve our people, the resilient Palestinians. Sadly, 72 members of my family were killed in a single airstrike. I still have my family actually here. Many of them are in Rafah right now. Many of them had to evacuate last night, including my own brothers and sisters. More than 250 of them had to flee their homes. And they are not, by the way, in the eastern part of Rafah. They are in the areas that are considered safe. But because the bombing has reached the west of Rafah, the central part of Rafah, and the intensive bombing in the last 3 days in eastern Rafah, they had no choice but to flee, many of them to open areas without tents, and they had to walk for 2 miles to get water or food. This has to stop. This madness has to stop. And it cannot continue this way, especially with the huge number of people currently in Rafah, more than 1.5 million Palestinians in a small area. You really don't need bombs to kill people. You just drop rocks from the sky or even sand from the sky. You can still kill women and children, and this madness needs to stop. The cases that have arrived to the European hospital, I cannot even describe to you how graphic they are. 3 third-degree burns, broken bones, broken skulls, children bleeding from every corner of their bodies. This is madness. This is not war.
Just finally, if you don't mind, and this is not a political question, but obviously it has political connotations. As a Palestinian, as a Gazan, being with your own people for the past 6.5 months, do you get the impression that if they could leave, they would leave? And I mean leave permanently to find peace in their lives, or are they determined to stay and live in a future Palestinian state?
I think the Palestinians have shown over the years, over and over again, that they are very resilient. This is the place where, what they call home. There is no other place that they feel safe and secure and happy than home. And instead of kicking them out of their homes and let them flee and get dispersed around the world, I think it's time to give them a Palestinian state to live like everybody. I avoid talking politics, and I don't want to talk politics. But to me, that sounds like a reasonable solution to the problem, is to recognize the dignity of these people, to give them a place to live in peace. The hopes of the Palestinian people are no different than those living anywhere in the world, is to live in peace and security and have a future for their children. And no one can achieve this future away from their own homes. And so to me, the answer is obvious. The Palestinians are not going anywhere and will not go anywhere except to be in their home. And they can flee within Gaza forever, but they will not flee outside Gaza. This is what I've sensed on the ground. This is what I've sensed from the people on the ground here in Gaza. And this is what we call typical Palestinian.
The fact that you've taken time to speak to us, Mosab, thank you so much indeed. It's always instructive. And good luck, stay safe, and we all wish your organization the very best. Mosab Nasser in Rafah, take care.